Hi, Sam. Thank you for joining me today to share a little bit about your experiences working on the front line during COVID. It's been really great to hear what it's been like on the ground, supporting a vulnerable demographic who've been drastically affected by the virus. So we can really appreciate your work and get a bit of a point of view from what it's like inside so that we can give back any way we can and support you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be interviewed.
Thank you for reaching out. It's really lovely to hear from you. So you work for New South Wales Health Older Age Psychiatry in New South Wales. What exactly you and your team do?
Absolutely. So I work for Prince of Wales, and there's a service there called the Older Persons Mental Health Service, which is basically older age psychiatry. My team there and I service a very vulnerable population who have struggled quite a bit through COVID. And a part of the difficulty, of course, in providing mental health services to this population is that they are a population that would face more difficulties with isolation. So we have, for example, widows or people with who lack social connection. And then because they're more susceptible to the virus, people are a lot more protective of them, of course, and a lot more precautions need to be taken. So they're vulnerable, not just psychiatrically in this regard, but also physically.
Must be really isolating for them.
I mean, another aspect of this is that a lot of them, or actually, to be fair, a lot of the people that we see who are over 65 are kind of tech savvy, actually. My grandparents are actually pretty tech savvy as well. But there are some people who are not, of course. It's a different generation and they didn't grow up with computers and smartphones like we did. So that's a really big social sphere that a lot of people are disconnected from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They don't have such quick access to their loved ones if they're not kind of across Facebook or Messenger or whatever.
When we're talking about people who are vulnerable as well, they could have something like a psychosis that's a further impairment to them to be able to engage and learn. They could have a cognitive impairment, they could have dementia. And these are all obstacles, of course, to getting online and learning those new skills. So a lack of digital literacy is difficult. And the way our service provision has changed has been that we, instead of offering like psychotherapy or counseling or clinical reviews in our center, we've had to do a lot of it via telehealth. And there's a huge part of someone's presentation that you miss with just audio. Even if there's no video present, we don't get to see the way that they're presenting, and it makes it a lot more difficult to establish a relationship with someone, to really gauge their overall mental state as well. So that's quite distressing.
I can imagine it'd be a lot harder to give that sort of treatment over the phone and not in person, for sure. Can you tell me a bit about your volunteer project, Care for Caregivers?
It's quite a small scope. It's more directed towards the service I'm working at, which is roughly around 30 clinicians. Now, they involve psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, social workers, occupational therapists, divisional therapists, and of course our clinical nurses as well are among just some of our professionals that we have. We also have some students, interns, registrars, and other technical staff members. I hope I haven't missed out any key professions. I probably have. So that's who the program has been aimed towards. So because we work with such a vulnerable population, many of us got sent to work from home, and that's made it more difficult as well because the team loses that sense of connection, which is so important for our work. We are a team that is very multidisciplinary in our approach to treatment. It involves quite a lot of collaboration. We get to know each other's patients extremely well, offer suggestions, and just the little things that you miss, like hallway water cooler chat, that kind of thing, having a coffee together is really isolative. So it's kind of a bit of an informal project with a whole range of ideas that staff might be interested in doing, which has involved things like some staff members have taken great initiative by doing little pep-ups and games that we do via Zoom. Some other ideas that we're going to be working on, depending on how interested people are going to be a buddy system. So buddying up with people, not in a way that they're your therapist, but in a way just to check on their overall well-being, just so you have that sense of connection again. On maybe some online opportunities for games you can play, lunch walks, recipe sharing. Those are just some of the ideas. Another one, I guess I wanted to center it around self-care. So an idea I had was to make some care packages for people that provide care to other people so much. So I contacted just a very few select of my very favorite companies, and Fig&Bloom being one of them. I've received flowers from Fig&Bloom, actually from a practice that I used to work at, which I thought was a really beautiful gift. And I kept the dried flower arrangement for such a long time. I thought it was really special. So I knew the company's kind of vibe and the work that they do, and I thought that would be a really good fit for the program.
Thank you for choosing us. It's a bit of an honor. That sounds like a really good initiative. I feel like often people that are in professions that are caring for other people, they don't get as much support, or like it's such a taxing profession that you really need to make sure you're getting that energy back that you're giving out so much. That sounds like a really, really good initiative. What is the most challenging part of your work during this pandemic?
I think I can only really speak from my own experience on that front. And it's been that, I guess, the lack of connection with colleagues, and doing this work from home can be, it's just different. It's uncertain, and feeling that this clinical blindness I've never had before, with not being able to assess people in person in terms of doing those reviews. It feels lonely. It can feel, the meetings can feel more boring, less immersive. It can feel a little bit like Groundhog Day. So you don't feel like you don't feel like you have that zest for the work that you typically do. And one of my colleagues actually did something that was so beautiful, and her name is Tanya, and she put together care packages for all the carers of patients and sent those out, which was such a beautiful initiative. And I think it just highlights the point that you just raised, that people in this line of work are always, thinking of others. So this is why I wanted to plan something for the team, so they don't know that they're going to be receiving a beautiful gift from Fig&Bloom yet. That's going to be a surprise that I'm really looking forward to sharing with everyone.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. It'll be a nice surprise as well.
Absolutely.
So what would you say have been the most rewarding aspects, I guess, which is difficult in a mostly negative time, but have there been any sort of like moments where you've been really grateful for something?
Some of the things that spring to mind would first be work related, because sometimes you get consumers, or that's what we kind of call our patients, who are just really struggling so much with feeling isolated, and to still have a sense of human connection with them over the phone and know you're making a difference is that's the feeling that keeps you going and breathes energy into this role that can be at times quite draining and full of despair and sadness. So it's nice to have that warmth and that happiness and that human connection, and you appreciate it so much, and you realize that connection takes so many different forms. Other things I'm grateful for would be just, I guess, taking the team for granted and knowing this is such a robust team that works so hard to support not just the consumers, but for each other. Out of the blue emails from just my colleagues, just asking, how are you going? And some of them you don't even typically talk to that much. Just sending you an email saying, how are you going? Do you have any plans after lockdown? And when are you going to see your family? That kind of thing. One of my colleagues, Emily, recently did that, which I thought was so lovely, which is just a really thoughtful, nice thing to do. we're all, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're so grateful for our manager who has just led us through this. There have been so many plans that have changed very quickly, and our manager Daniela has been so responsive to that. She's also someone who is very psychologically minded, very collaborative, and having a manager that is sensitive to change and is responsive and listening, and just her priority is just supporting her staff and leading them through, as well as supporting the consumers. And that is so important. And I think that if I worked for a different service, if they didn't have that sense of leadership that gave us this sense of cohesion and guidance throughout this really scary, uncomfortable, uncertain time, I don't know how I would have coped. So I'm really thankful to the team members that I work with for making this so much more tolerable and even at times enjoyable.
That's really lovely. It sounds like you've got a really good kind of support network.
So I should mention everyone's done little bits and pieces, and everyone's done really nice gestures, and I can't mention everyone because it's a really positive team. Another staff member, Gina, recently bought everyone a gift, which was lovely. She bought everyone a face mask and posted it out as a secret. And so next week we're going to do a little bit of a self-care thing on Zoom by opening the mystery envelope, and I think that was a really lovely thing to do also.
Yeah, it sounds like all these little bits and pieces kind of keep you going, even just like someone randomly checking in with you, being like, how are you doing today? Like, are you okay? Do you want to talk? Think about the future, positive stuff.
Yeah,
like you've been lucky, got a very lovely team. What would you like the public to know about the work you do, and if you have any like advice for them or requests from the public? Or
I think, look, I can't really speak on behalf of the service in this, so I'll give my own advice. But I would say, if you suspect someone is struggling with isolation or their mood, or you've noticed any kind of decline in someone's mental or physical mental state, it's really hard, but I think the instinct is to avoid and stay away from it because it's awkward and uncomfortable. But instead, just act opposite. Just ask them, just say, how are you doing? Are you okay? I really want people to be aware that there is so much support out there as well, that we have, crisis lines. We have the 1-800 mental health line. We have Lifeline as well.
Yeah.
So we have Beyond Blue. We have the Black Dog Institute. These are all organizations that offer our population a huge amount of support.
Yeah.
And I think reaching out at first can be, again, really uncomfortable, really scary. Going and talking to your GP, and if you're struggling with something of a psychological or a psychiatric nature, your GP can be your first port of call. Talk to them, get a referral to see someone.
Yeah, I think beyond the awkwardness, a lot of people kind of struggle to ask for help as well, so they probably really appreciate if you're checking in. It might be like the key that gets them to seek help or reach out or open up.
Absolutely. Are you okay? That question, it can't just be a once a year thing. We need to be really sensitive to other people and check in with our friends. I think it's also really instinctive just to say, yeah, I'm great, when you're not. Yeah. And sometimes you really need to say to people, okay, well, if there's ever anything you want to talk about, or if you do, just know I'm here. You can chat to me anytime.
That makes sort of sense. I think it's good to get in the habit of it, even if it's not what you're used to, just checking in and getting past that uncomfortableness of being vulnerable. And did you, or I guess other people in your team, do to look after your own period?
What did we do in terms of self-care?
Yeah.
Again, because it's been so isolative and I've not had that sense of connection with my team, it's hard to know exactly what other people have done. So I can only really speak on behalf of myself with that. And I'll be completely honest that I can be a really big hypocrite in terms of things I tell other people to do, and indeed my patients to do, and things I actually do myself. Things that have been helpful have been just making time to be social in a new way. So it's so easy not to, and to just avoid and to not pick up the phone, but actually call your friends and just text. I think it's really important to actually make appointments to see your friends if you can't meet them in real life,
Yeah.
have Zoom dates, make little events, try and do something new in the confines of your own home. So
Yeah.
keeping active, I think. In psychology, we talk a lot about behavior activation, which is basically where there's very good evidence to suggest that behavioral activity and keeping active is a good way of offsetting that dangerous cycle of depression and low mood. So we need to think of novel ways that we can do this within the confines of our own home. So there's still new things we can try. We can practice a new skill. We can learn about a new topic. We can talk to someone new. Ways we can get out of our comfort zone without getting out of a physical zone, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thinking of good activities in lockdown is a really good idea. Me and my friend actually did cooking over Zoom. We cooked the same thing.
Oh, very cool.
So it felt like we were doing something together, but not quite, and we got to eat the same thing. It was pretty fun. Yeah, I think it's also a lot easier sometimes to give advice and take it, even though you know what you should be doing, especially in lockdown. Kind of make a lot of excuses, but it's good to be strict with yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think waking up at 6 a.m. every day and having a run's a good idea, but I don't do it.
I think a lot of people think that and don't do it.
We know it's a good idea, but
no, it's a good idea. Like doing yoga every day would probably be good, but
yeah, we should meditate more.
But you know, life's busy.
That would be my other bit of advice. Go easy on yourself. Don't hold yourself to high standards. Know that this is an unusual time. I probably go a little bit too easy on myself at times, but I think that's okay.
I think that's okay. Yeah. If you don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and do a workout every morning in lockdown, I think that's probably all right.
Absolutely.
Have a glass of wine instead.
At 6 a.m. Yeah. I'm not going to judge it.
Maybe not at 6 a.m. Maybe not at 6 a.m. Yeah. And thank you for coming on board with us for this chat, because it's definitely going to help spread awareness around what you guys do and some of the services that are available out there. Is there anything else you kind of want to add or want people to know about? Or
I would just like to finish by saying thank you so much for your engagement and for your incredibly generous gift. I know it's going to make such a difference. It's a very appreciative team that will not be expecting it at all. I know they're going to be so delighted, and I know it's going to just breathe some new life and zest into their work. The people that I work with deserve this so much. They have worked so tirelessly and so hard. And it has been really challenging, more so for my colleagues that have been right there at the hospital and have had to do things in their job that they never normally had to do. So they've had to take on deployments and new roles and just contact tracing, doing swabs, giving vaccines, things that they didn't have to do before because we're psychiatry or mental health service. So my colleagues really deserve this, and they deserve all the credit in the world. So thank you so much for taking the time to think of this service and to make this wonderful donation.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Being able to kind of spread love and being a tool for people to show appreciation towards each other through flowers and gifts is what makes us really happy and what makes us keep going to help provide that for people. Love.
That's lovely. And I think it's going to be a nice little momentum for them to remember this challenging time.
Yeah, hopefully it reminds them how great they are and how strong they are, and they can kind of look back on it and feel really proud for getting through this period.
I hope so.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your engagement.
No worries. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
You too. Okay.